All right, the Bob Bratina news is really interesting. A Hamilton East Stony Creek MP will not run in the next federal election. You've heard him on this radio station, this great heritage radio station, CHML, for years and years and years. Was a phenomenal success as a talk show host, sports writer, sports broadcaster. He's really done everything. But is this it? And he's very critical of the Hamilton LRT and the recent announcement there. So I want to get into that right now and get the thoughts and pick the brain of John Best, who's founder and president of the Bay Observer. John, it's Greg Brady. Thanks very much for making the time to come on and talk about this.
My pleasure, Greg. Nice chatting with you.
Tell me if you're surprised by the announcement there from Bob.
I wasn't completely surprised. I talked to Bob frequently over the last few weeks, and there was no question he was becoming increasingly frustrated with the direction this project was taking. It appeared we had some kind of a consensus starting to form around a bus rapid transit system, but more importantly, the money that was being offered by the province, which was $1 billion, would have allowed us to extend bus service to a whole bunch of parts of the city that are not getting good bus service now. And there seemed to be some consensus forming even on council, but while all that was going on, there was also very furious lobbying going on to get the federal government to put in money to make LRT feasible, and that required extra billions of dollars. And those negotiations and that lobbying, I guess, came to pass last week, and suddenly, instead of a $1 billion transit offer from the province, which in itself was, somewhat unprecedented, that a city would just get handed $1 billion for transit upgrades. Suddenly it becomes, $3.4 billion of taxpayer dollars. And we now are being told that we're getting LRT whether we like it or not. So, and council, the city council here, Greg, have also been expressing their frustration in the last few months that all this lobbying and negotiating have been going on with no regard whatsoever for the local council. So there's just a whole bunch of things kind of bubbled up at the same time. And Bob has always marched to his own drummer, and he just felt this was a bridge too far, if you will, that he just couldn't support it, and he wasn't prepared to act as if he was going to support it. So he issued this statement today.
One on the LRT, and then I certainly want to talk about what you think Bob's future might be. One of the big check marks for people, John, was that an LRT would stop and go at GO stations, and this doesn't. So that was a huge check mark that falls short for an awful lot of people who are really frustrated because, the cost would have been a little bit more, but this just doesn't check the boxes for a lot of people that hoped it would.
Well, you're right, Greg, and it's been obvious, really for quite a while now that what you might call transit metrics, that this is not a transit project in the sense that, we have congestion, we have a need, and here's how we solve it. Here's the transit solution. This is it's a real estate play. It's they have this vision that there's going to be all this development taking place along the route. But, others would tell you that Hamilton has been very successful already. There's been billions of dollars worth of investment with no route. Our downtown is probably has as much building activity going on as we've ever had. So it's always, and the other problem with this whole LRT saga, which has been going on here for 12 years, is that so much of it has been done behind the scenes. Council has never really been fully engaged in this file. A lot of it was they were told that LRT would not cost the city a penny, and on that basis, a number of them didn't actually support it, but they allowed it to continue to the next step. So, but the lack of connectivity to GO is an issue. That's the kind of thing that a transit engineer would say that's a must. If we're going to spend this kind of money, we've got to at least connect to the interurban transit. But in our case, that's not the case. People have to walk half a kilometer to the nearest GO station from this LRT.
John Best is founder and president of the Bay Observer, joining me talking about Bob Bratina saying he will step down as MP, Liberal MP, for his riding. There are a lot of politicians I hear from sometimes, or I have a private conversation, and they say, I don't know that I could do as much federally as I can do at a more local level. And everybody in Hamilton knows Bob. Hamilton guy, one of the most popular politicians in the city's history. Do you think going federally was maybe, like I said, an endeavor that was rather frustrating for him at times, that you really can't move a lot of the heavy objects you want to in your community that you can certainly at the municipal level and often at the provincial level?
I don't think there's any doubt about it, Greg. Bob, I don't think he had any illusions that he was going to go into the cabinet necessarily, but the way MPs, you've got two worlds. There's the cabinet and then there's everybody else. And it's increasingly the gulf between those two has become greater and greater. And frankly, MPs, whether you're on the government side of the House or the opposite side of the House, they really are just treated in a very shabby way. And certainly Bratina was treated that way, even by his local colleagues. I mean, as recently as yesterday, one of his local colleagues was putting out a tweet thanking the Trudeau and the government for coming up with this money, and then listing a bunch of people that supported the project, and including Bob's name, which of course at that point he was crafting his resignation letter. So,
yeah.
Ordinary MPs. It was Trudeau's father that 35, 40 years ago said, if they're a few yards off Parliament Hill, they're really nobodies. And it's even worse now in 2021. The ordinary members are really just, unfortunately, cannon fodder.
Yeah, and they can't. Well, we're seeing it in Queen's Park today. You can't vote your conscience. It's you see a lot more of that, obviously, with the U.S. system in Congress and the House, that you can push back against your party, fight for your constituents, and go in a different direction. I got about 45 seconds here. Do you think he's running for mayor again? I mean, age is just a number. He's in his mid-70s, but like I said, it's a name, and he's got the experience and he's got the resume. Would he do it again?
Well, he might. He did not shy away from the question when he was asked this morning on television. He said it was in his mind. He certainly hadn't made up his mind. And you're right about the age thing. I mean, we live in an area where Hazel McCallion was 100 years old. So it's obvious that if a person's in good health and they are engaged, that that age number really doesn't need to be a factor.
It doesn't. Yeah, it's very, very possible. And what a race that would be if he challenges Fred Eisenberger. They'll love to have you on, John. Thanks very much for the opinion today and the clarification on some of that. I enjoyed it.
Thanks very much, Greg.
Yeah, there's John Best joining us, founder and president of the Bay Observer.
The Bill Kelly Show, weekdays from